right, so it's 4:29 and we're headed out for morning chores.
In the hours before sunrise, a dairy farm in northern Vermont comes to life.
Hi, my name is Carrie Atherton. This is the Thompson Farm, known by Ayers Hill. It was established in 1826. The seventh generation to run the farm, first woman. We took it over from my parents and my uncle back 5-6 years ago.
7 days a week, Carrie and her dog, Chief, get the farm up and running before the employees come in to start the milking process. Occasionally, her daughter Maggie pitches in before going to school. Meanwhile, her husband Nick has his own full-time job to focus on.
So the routine, usually I'm up by 10 to 4 or so, to the barn around 20 after. And the first thing I do is check the computer. So we have monitor systems. And I get to look for any cows that may be off on feed. So that's the first thing I check, and then I go push up feed. So I put that plastic down so you won't get my seat all wet. You can kind of confirm what the computer's told you, who does and doesn't come to the feed bunk. And then I make the ration basically for the day, what they have left over for refusals, and do they need more, do they need less. And then by the time I get done pushing up feed, everybody else is here. We're bringing in cows, start milking.
She's dealt with several concussions, all thanks to the cows, so she wears a helmet to keep herself safe. These morning chores, as Carrie calls them, end with a breakfast break around 8:30, and then it's right back to work.
Chief, come on.
For Carrie, this schedule is nothing new. She and her sisters grew up here.
We all had our own chores. I think I probably was the most involved on the farm. Not sure why. I just was here. And I didn't mind it. We had to do chores in the morning before we went to school. Back then, I think we probably thought it was mean, but now it instilled a lot of responsibility. And I'm doing the same thing with Maggie, his.
As the third child, Carrie was surprised to be the sister who took over the family farm.
So yeah, I just pretty much stayed, I guess. I went to VTC for ag business management, and then I went to Wisconsin for a summer, worked on a dairy out there. It's hard working with family every day. You know, I was living in my parents' house, working every day. And I knew I liked the farm, but it was real hard with my father. He was a hard ass for sure. I just came back because they needed me. You know, I knew they needed me, and they needed me, and he didn't get no easier working with them, that's for sure. But they had to work real hard to keep what they had from his father, and you hurt the ones you're closest to, or however that goes. But we've come to where our relationship is better now that we're not working together, and I always accepted it.
Particularly for a family-run farm, size is an important factor. Vermont has 3 classifications for dairy farms: small, medium, and large. Small dairies can have up to 200 milking cows. Medium, between 200 and 700. Anything over 700 is considered large. With 220 milking cows, Ayers Hill is barely making it as a medium farm, putting it in direct competition with farms that have double or triple the number of cows. Carrie has weighed the possibility of becoming a small farm, but feels that staying a medium farm gives her room to grow as things change. For a majority of the year, Carrie receives help from Nick.
My role isn't full-time on the farm. I have a full-time job that I work with a Maple Equipment Company. I'm in sales, so I have a fairly flexible schedule. I do whatever needs to be done, I guess. I fill in wherever I can.
In the springtime, however, Nick focuses on sugaring.
And I also sugar, so pretty hectic time right now. That's my family sugaring operation where my sugar house is, and I bought that from my parents as well. So it's a little bit of tradition there with that. We're trying to integrate that into things. It's all based on temperature to get the proper density of the syrup.
We've always kept things separate, just because I had the farm, he had the sugaring when we met. But when he gets into his sugaring mode, I mean, it's no different than me having 100 acres out on the ground. You know what I mean?
Back in 2014, when Carrie first took charge of Ayers Hill, it was looking like it would be a great year for Vermont dairies. But a few months later, the farm's fortunes took a turn.
That was when we've had record high prices. And I took over in August, and that's when the prices started to go down. So I had about a month and a half of high prices, and then we hit like record lows for the last 5 years.
With milk prices falling, finding and paying employees proved to be difficult. However, Carrie still had her father and uncle for support and guidance.
It was new for everybody because we were transitioning. So you've got the older generation versus the younger generation. So it wasn't like I was out by myself for sure. I had the expertise above me and I could ask questions. And they were there for support for crops and stuff. They just kind of wanted to be done with the animals and the barn chores.
The challenges at Ayers Hill were not unique. Consider that in 2010, Vermont had 1,015 dairy farms. In 2019, that number dropped to 677. Low milk prices, trade wars, and the dominance of larger farms sealed the fate of many smaller dairies.
Farming is just a big community, tight-knit community. You don't ever want to see anybody else fail. And some of them failed, yes, but a lot of them just decided and they chose to go out because they were burning up their assets and their equity that they'd worked for their whole life. If they didn't have a younger generation coming in, there was really no reason to stay in the industry anymore. He knows what they are, so they're not as curious. They're all waiting by the door, wondering where I've been.
Expanding beyond dairy is a step many smaller Vermont farms are taking to survive, whether or not milk production continues.
Learning as I go with them. I've never had, I had pigs when I was little. I think if you wanted to make money, you'd get out of farming. It's more of a lifestyle, it's more of a way of life and how we choose to live.
While smaller farms have been closing, large-scale operations have taken over. In 2010, the 1,000-plus farms in Vermont produced 2.5 billion pounds of milk. By 2019, with less than 700 farms, over 2.6 billion pounds were produced. Fewer farms, fewer cows, and yet more milk. It's been good news for big farms, and bad news for smaller ones. Carrie and Nick felt the only solution was to diversify and adapt. Together, they opened a creamery and a farm stand during the COVID-19 pandemic to help the farm through tough economic times. Now, they pasteurize their milk on site and sell their products through the farm stand.
We getting a gallon.
So when COVID hit and I went to the store and I couldn't buy milk, it made me mad. Because, I was buying 4 gallons a week for the 3 of us. And my husband had talked about it in the years past, let's bottle our own milk. And I kept saying there's no money in it. We just jumped on it because of COVID. So if it wasn't for COVID, I don't know if we would have been, if we are where we are right now.
So that's my thing. It was her idea. I wasn't ready. I wasn't thinking that we were at that point yet, but we did. We pulled the trigger on it, and that's changed everything, I guess, as far as what our schedules are.
We ran numbers. We're both numbers people, but it was a need. It was really what it was. It's like, we've got the milk and people need it. It wasn't that nobody wasn't milking cows anymore. It was the supply. It was the supply chain. So we didn't know how long it was going to go on for.
I will say that what the farm is today, that creamery, at its current state, it's not going to save the farm, for sure. But the long-term goal, we're on track with it. What's in that bulk tank and leaves here on the milk truck daily, that's where all the revenue comes from that drives the farm. So that's a transition that's going to take several years, but that's our plan. And when we get there, I think it'll be something a little more sustainable and enjoyable for us,
As of now, Carrie has no idea who will take over the farm when she is ready to retire. Carrie and the rest of the Thompson family fear the farm may end with her after nearly 2 centuries of passing it down the line.
We'll see. And maybe I'll be the last generation. It doesn't look good. Our kids, or my nieces and nephews, there's 12, my parents have 12 grandkids. Are one of them going to want to take it over? I wouldn't say Maggie's necessarily first in line because she's my kid, because I think they all have equal right to it. It's a family farm. But is anybody going to want to? It's a good way of life, but it's not easy,
As night falls, another day in the life of Ayers Hill comes to an end. In the morning, the cycle will simply start all over again. It's taken many years for Carrie to realize she can't worry about the future. She just has to keep moving forward, and hope that her efforts are enough to keep the farm alive.
So yesterday, well, we collected 5 eggs in the morning and we collected 3 eggs in the afternoon. How many eggs did we collect? And that's exactly what we do on her, her math problems at school. So it actually was perfect, wasn't it?
8.
We had 8. That's right. Good job.
So I gave her a call. We went out on a date. And she talked basically the whole evening. I didn't get too much in.
He loves to have a job to do, that's for sure. But so the creamery part is the container, and it's kind of like an all-in-one pack.